Welcome to the People Chronicles. I'm Jackie Hoffman, and each and every week we give you a different story. You like to learn from other people's stories, and we like to share those stories with you. So if you have one or you know someone who's willing to do that, you can certainly find out more at thepeoplechronicles.com. And joining us today, Jeff Woytovich. Thank you so much for coming along.
You're welcome.
You were 5 minutes late.
Yeah, not according to my watch. I was only 3 minutes.
All right. So we just had a little bit of a time change, so we'll let you slide on that.
Thanks.
So, Jeff, what is it that you want people to learn from your story today?
I want people to learn that it's okay to fail sometimes, as long as there's a purpose for your failure. What I mean by that is, if you have a job that you go to and it's just a job, and you work it and you get fired, or you quit, or you decide to move on, it's not a bad thing as long as there's a higher purpose. And I think a lot of times people, they feel horrible when that happens, and they feel like the world is coming down. But every single time it's happened to me, I've always been able to rely and go back to my true passion and the purpose, I think, why I'm here. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
And you have a beautiful family to boot, and were you born and bred in Berks County? I always need to know that as well when I'm getting to know someone.
Yes.
You were?
Yes. I was gone for 4 years in the Marine Corps and 2 years when we lived down in the Philadelphia area.
And how many children do you have?
I have 4 daughters.
4 girls.
Yes.
and a Marine too at that, right? You still feel like a Marine when you have to answer that door? When the boys are at the door?
I always tell people I'm more of the sitcom type of dad.
Okay.
The guy that just yells a lot, but they just look at you and walk the other way.
And your beautiful wife, Betsy?
Yes.
All right. So now we're going to find out where your higher passion lies that you were talking about, and how you learned that what you're doing now is what you needed to be doing a long time ago.
Yeah, I think when I started the Children's Alopecia Project, it was more out of necessity for myself than it was for my daughter, Madison, who lost all the hair on her body when she was 5 due to the incurable autoimmune disease, alopecia. And we started it because we really wanted to help kids, but we found that it helped us. It helped me. So selfishly, I was the person that got the most out of it at the very beginning. And then when we started to help other kids, it just got contagious, where it felt good helping kids, and it felt good helping the grown-ups. And before you know it, we spread from Berks County to other parts of the state, to other states, and 10 years later, we're all over the world. Actually, we're the only 501c3 that was founded, operated here in Berks County that reaches out all over the world. It's not a division of another nonprofit from another area. So I'm very proud of that, and it was something that I always wanted to do. I didn't want to make a living at it. I felt proud, and I wanted mainly to leave a legacy for my family of what we did, and then eventually walk away.
And so what were some of those things that you were doing prior to making this your full-time job, and understanding that you didn't want to give this part of your world up, and you couldn't because it's your daughter and it's everyone else that you're helping, but yet you realize, I still need to make sure that I can bring home a chunk of change. So how do you find balance in that?
I didn't find balance, and that was the problem. At the beginning, I worked in senior health care, and I was an administrator and marketing director. So a lot of my time was devoted to those facilities and to the families. And then I would devote an equal amount of time when I got back home. So I got into a lot of bad habits, and one of them is pretty much not sleeping. And what ended up happening is that I just wasn't doing a great job at work, because it was work. No matter how much I enjoyed it, it was still work. And the only time I felt really good, like I was making a difference, was when I'm at home, not making any money. But I see the results. I'm dealing with the kids. I'm dealing with the families. And then the more things that we developed, like the Spring Spectacular and Alopecia Palooza, which is an international camp, and the kid camps and library programs and all these other things that we started.
You started.
Right. We just started to get all of this feedback, and it felt good. And I think feeling good and knowing that you helped your child and then you're helping other kids, but more importantly, you're helping yourself, that was more important to me. And as a result, I suffered a lot, both with guilt, with being let go, and by leaving companies because I needed to find something else that was a little bit more flexible. And the more flexibility I found, the more I stopped doing that and started doing more cap work. And actually, I remember the first person that ever said anything to me about, well, why don't you just work cap, was actually Tony Reese. And I remember thinking, you know what, I had a couple of board members say that, but I don't want to seem like I started this just so I can make a living at it. And trust me, it's not much of a living because it's, even though we're international, it's still small in comparison to other nonprofits. So I never really thought about it seriously. And there was a time in the last year where we were thinking about it more, and then Betsy was offered a position at Berks Catholic as a development director, and she was doing most of the administrative and the organizational work. And then it just made sense that who's taking over? Who's going to do this? And who's going to put up with me? And who's going to allow me to be part of their party? And I'm just thinking there's no one that would be able to do that. I would drive them away from a job. So it was kind of a foregone conclusion that I would be the guy that took it over. It was difficult at the beginning because I had a huge amount of guilt, and it's probably because I'm Catholic, but I felt bad that anybody out there listening or looking or knowing that I was now the director of this organization might look at it as if it was a negative. And we asked many people, just not from this area, but all over the country. And again, the reassurance that I got was positive. No one said anything negative. And we went ahead and made the move.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your daughter and the things that you have done, not just to reassure her that, hey, your life is going to be just fine, and bring her into understanding and realizing that the self-confidence that she has built has meant so much to her peers. But what is it that you do? I know that you had said that earlier, you, along with everything else that you do and get together, you let schools know, a little bit more about alopecia and what it is, and how other students and faculty, which to me was a slap in the face to not realize that they don't understand it.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is awareness. And Madison had it pretty easy, actually. So October of 2003, she starts losing her hair. It's pretty much all gone by November. She's in a play. She's going to be a Native American Indian, and she's going to wear a headdress. And they allowed her to wear a hat. So here she is in a Catholic school, at Sacred Heart School, and she's wearing a hat, which most people that went to Catholic school can't believe. It's like, wow, they let her wear a hat? Well, they let her whole class wear a hat? Wow. So we had it easy. If it wasn't for the school being so great, we would have probably took more time and effort to make sure that Maddie was good. But the school did a great job, and we didn't have to worry about her. And the kids, all the kids at the school, took her under her wing, and she was never made fun of through kindergarten through 8th grade. And then when she started at Berks Catholic, this is a kid with no hair on her body, and she's never been teased or made fun of, which to me is amazing, because when I was a kid, I was teased and bullied, and I teased and bullied other kids. So it wasn't something that was unusual. This is unusual. So when we're dealing with kids and families, and this is one of the things that most people don't know, not every school district is the same. They all want to educate our kids, but they have different policies in place. And some of them are wrong. And I think the one policy they all need to have is common sense, because what will end up happening is that children will be penalized for having too much hair, not enough hair, no hair, wearing a wig, wearing a hat, wearing a bandana, because somewhere in their guidebook there's a zero tolerance policy. The only problem is that zero tolerance really isn't zero tolerance. And it's just one of the things that I get upset about, because if a kid feels more secure when they're wearing a hat and the school has a policy that you're not allowed to wear hats, you should understand that this child has a disease. It's incurable. They might not be dying and they might not be in pain, but the anguish and the anxiety that they go through every day, exposing a bare head to the world that most are afraid of getting bullied and picked on and teased and stared at, it's easier sometimes to cover it up. So for a school to say that you're not allowed to do that, you have to get a 504 plan, which is a long process. It's basically paperwork, so that way there's a policy in place so nobody else is ever discriminated against, which is silly. Well, that's when I come in, and I politely make sure that that 504 plan costs as much as it possibly can in a most ridiculous way to show the schools that common sense should be here. I've never seen a handbook that had zero tolerance on anything other than guns and drugs. But for some reason, they love using the zero tolerance policy on everything. So we do a lot of that. And unfortunately, it's something that I wish I didn't have to do, because, again, common sense should be what grown-ups use more than anything.
All right, Jeff, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to find out a little bit more about through a father's eyes and what it's like, watching your daughter grow and how you've turned things around and tried to be the voice and educate more people who have a little bit of ignorance for what it is that's going on the People Chronicles.